Hey, I'm Paul Bui and I'm a multidisciplinary creative, which means I do a lot of random stuff. This all stems from my roots growing up as a 15-year-old raver in Canberra, Australia. Dance music and rave has always been my passion, but I used to review all these raves for the local street press to try and sneak into these gigs for free. As a teen, I was so lucky to interview some of my dance music heroes such as Grandmaster Flash, the amazing turntablist Hubert, and then I landed a job at Oyster magazine as a copy editor, and then I tried my hand at styling, thinking that styling and writing aren't too different. They're both just storytelling tools, one with imagery and one with words. And even to this very day, throughout all my shoots, I still incorporate my rave energy into a little of the imagery. When I was the editor at Oyster magazine, one of my proudest moments was working on a shoot for Nuclear Family. And we were one of the first magazines in Australia to shoot all black models. The premise being these two stunning black women raising an Asian child in a SpongeBob outfit. We were trying to redefine the idea of what a nuclear family could be, but then looking on forums years later, I had random strangers, dissecting it into issues of racial representation, sexuality, and even adoption, which I think is incredible. So since moving to New York City about a decade ago, my first role was as the editorial director for the creative juggernaut MOOC Studios. Then after that as the digital creative director for LGBTQ+ tome Out magazine, and more recently as the US creative director for the relaunch of the Trailblazing The Face magazine, which I've been a huge fan of since I was a kid. One of the highlights was actually working with Peter Ashley, who's an incredible Korean photographer, and the Japanese model Yuka. And I insisted that every single crew, casting, and designer label news had to be of Asian heritage. Again, this circles back to the theme of being othered, and I think othered, is often centered around racial representation or lack thereof. But othered can also mean being part of a subculture that's often misunderstood, which is why I worked with Matt Tamaro, another incredible photographer, to really shed some light on the scene behind kink and fetish culture in New York City. So as the digital creative director for Out magazine, I was so lucky to be commissioned by Pose to direct a short video series to uncover the real underground New York City ballroom scene. So I spent a lot of time with Kia LaBeija, the mother of the House of LaBeija, Pony Slim's Slim Extravaganza, who you might know from the TV show, and my favorite, which is the late and great Hector Extravaganza, whose wisdom and fierceness I'll never forget. Working on these videos really inspired me to kind of dig deep into my past and work on my own personal project. Having immigrated to Australia when I was 5 years old as a Vietnamese kid, I never really felt like I quite belonged. And me being a queer Asian kid, I felt very much like an outcast or othered. So I wanted to explore this issue more in a personal film, which I ended up spending a year directing with my collaborator Andy Boyce. And it was all about the intersection between queerness and Asian identity. And I think the end result was that we were not alone and we're all part of a community. And I was very thankful that Document Journal premiered it. My partners Arthur Kozlowski, Angela Pham, and I built the first queer-owned live stream platform for marginalised artists. It grew exponentially, which we were so excited about. We were able to produce 6 live stream fundraisers, bring together and unite 30 different POC and queer collectives from around the world, and have 60 POC and LGBTQ artists perform and raise $30,000 for a bunch of charities, including the Trans Women of Colour Collective, Glitz, Orem Refugee, and a few others.
If you consider yourself an artist, you should do something that scares you.
I only wanted to work with marginalised figures that felt othered and had gone through their trials and tribulations to do amazing things. People like the legendary queer filmmaker John Waters, Laverne Cox, Harry Neff, and Richie Shazam, a good friend of mine. I think I worked with these people because I identified with them and I felt like it was important to share their stories.